My name is Paul Brownstein. We're here in Beverly Hills, California with Richard Dawson. It's December 1st, 2010, and this is the Archive of American Television, Emmy TV Legends interview. Richard,
I'm sorry.
what was your name at birth?
I beg your pardon?
At birth, was your name Richard Dawson?
No. My name was Colin, C-O-L-I-N. And my surname was M, E-M-M. And I wasn't going to be in show business, so that wouldn't concern me at all. But then I'd go to school, and the teacher would come and say, "What's your name?" M, sir. M what? E-M-M. Mem? No, sir. M. M what? E-M-M. Mem. No. And I thought I should change this to something like Schwarzenegger, or where I'd have a chance in life. And I wasn't thinking about show business at all. It was nothing to do with in fact, I was a truant most of the time. I was born in a log cabin in Illinois at a place called Parkerville, which was weird because my parents were in England at Gosport, Hampshire. That's a little seaport opposite Portsmouth. Portsmouth was the big naval base, and Southampton's about 19 miles up the way. That's all the civil boats come in, Queen Mary. Mm-hmm. So I was in between both of those, as we like to say in the military, ports of interest. So if I was a Nazi spy, I would have really been okay. Unfortunately, I wasn't. I was a kid who had just been evacuated with his brother. I had one brother, 5 years older than me. And I don't really have a lot to do with him. I know that sounds very callous, particularly as you're talking to legends of Emmy, but his name was John. Well, I think it still is John. I don't want to presume anything, but he always believed in, like, if you were tough enough, you can do anything. Now, he joined the Marines, honestly, and he became a sniper. He became one of the, I think, 12 best shots in the British Isles. Came to American shot-in contest. But then when he got out of the Marines, I said, "What are you going to do?" He said, "Are you kidding? I'm one of the best shots." I said, "Oh, of course. I know wars are looking for snipers at the moment. You can't go through life being a sniper." And he would get grumpy and cross. And so we drifted apart. We weren't angry at each other, and I probably told you more about my brother than you wish to know. But apart from my brother, I have mom and dad, greatest people.
What did Dad do?
My dad drove what would be like beacons. It's called Pickford in England. They move furniture. Very hard job because, you're lifting heavy things upstairs. Most of the houses are two-story in England, or they were we were in council houses, very poor. We had two bedroom, one living room and a kitchen. That's all there was, one bathroom. And, that's, kind of sad, but you'd never know that from my parents. I remember once, and it's quite ashamed to tell you this, but I really don't. I think I was filled with silks and scarves. And this was just after the war. We hadn't seen any of those beautiful materials, And we found out somehow, the boys, all the neighbors, that if we ran towards him, yelling, a grown man, he would run. He'd close his back and he would run. And I had done this a couple of times, and when you're a kid, 8, 9, 10, that's a lot of power. You can make I have no idea. Anyway, we're chasing him one day around the corner, and who is standing there? My mother. And she said, Colin, come here. You know, I didn't want to get in trouble with my mother. You know. I said, yeah. She said, what are you doing? I said, oh, we're chasing that Indian man. And they just dropped my option. Did you hear that? Anyway, I said, we're chasing that Indian man. He runs. She said, he looks terrified. Why are you doing that? I said, well, because he's scared of us. She said, so if your dad was in India now, would you like a group of Indian people to come and run your dad right through this town, sweating, falling, getting up, terrified, doesn't know whether he's going to live or die? And suddenly it became very serious to me. I said, oh, no, I wouldn't like that. And she said, when your dad and I got married, both families didn't approve of us. We got married on Christmas Eve, and we swore we'd just be true to ourselves and not judge people by how they're dressed or what color they are. We would just treat them like we wanted to be treated. So we formed a club. I said, yeah. And she said, and if you can get this sort of behavior out of your system, we'd be very happy to have you as a member of our club. And I said, oh, I swear I'll never do that again. And she gave me a kiss. And she said, okay. And I think that's probably the start of my liberal education, you know. My mom, who had nothing, she used to play whist, cards, once a week to win the food that was the first prize in a basket. And I only learned later, my mom often wouldn't have a meal towards the end of the week because we were on the dole, you know, that means, what did they?
Welfare.
Welfare. I'm sorry. Welfare. Grown man should know what that word is, but anyway, that's English equivalent. And she would play, and now she didn't win. We wouldn't have food for that weekend or something. But it was only because we were poor, that's all. And the war was over, and they had a magic about them. My parents never fought. I know this is nothing, I don't know, is this interesting to you? But
It's part of your background, but
well, I'll tell you just one
your
thing
parents.
that
Yeah,
just
this is
touches
interesting.
me. My mom and dad never fought. And why? Because they always left each other notes. And we all had to do that, you know. And it could be in a pocket, or it could be in a handbag, or on the table if no one was there. And I remember one day my dad coming home have lunch, and I was there from school. My mom wasn't there. And she said, where's your mom? I said, oh, Dad. Then she came across the street with a hot loaf, and she'd been to the baker's. And she went into the kitchen, and for the first time ever, I heard my mom cry. And I thought, oh, wow, I don't understand that. And I went to the kitchen door. She said, I just crossed the street to get you some fresh bread. And he said, he would call my mom mate, you know. He said, you knew that, mate, but I didn't. So when I come home and you're not here, I think, what if you're lying down somewhere, been knocked over, or anything happened to you? I wouldn't know that. And, you know, he hugged her. And then about 3 days later, he came to me and he had out of his pocket, it was a little note. And it said, I promise to leave a message if I'm going to the baker. Love, Joe. And he said, you know, I could really be cross with her or angry. She didn't pick up the towels in the bathroom or whatever it is. And I might not find that note that day. But like I get my sandwich for lunch the next day, and I open the sandwich bag and there's a note saying, I love you and I'm sorry I didn't put the cap on the toothpaste. And he would do the same for her. That was magic. To be able to go through life and not fight. You didn't ever have money, except, when I got into show business, but they really had. What's everything to me is it's love. It's to belong to somebody. I haven't really perfected this speech. When I go on the road, I'll have a big band bring up the sound. I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
What did you want to be when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, I guess probably work in the dockyard in Portsmouth because, I knew they earned money. And money was so important to us, for entertainment, we would go to Woolworths and touch the white rain packages of shampoo. First sensual feeling. I don't mean we were aroused, but that was our just looking at things, looking at cakes that you'll never get. You'll never be able to eat because you can't afford them. But then they make up a library in your mind of association. If I never think of those if I see a great cake that I, could have now if I want, I guarantee you I'll see my mother or my father in my mind within the next 2 or 3 minutes. And just something to make me smile, Something like, did Mom have a big cream cake, Dad? Yes, she did. Could I see it? Well, if we can just wind the clock back an hour, you could see it. What's that mean? I ate it. Oh, okay. Okay, my dad had a great sense of humor.
But how do you get from this kind of upbringing in a naval environment, you get into the Navy, and then how do you get into show business? Where does that come from?
Well, my brother was a marvelous ballroom dancer. I'm serious. He won all kinds of things, which is a great way to meet girls. But I couldn't dance a step, And we'd go to dances, and all the boys sit one side and all the girls sit the other. And if you really got up enough nerve, you go over to the girl that you like, and you say, "May I have this dance?" And they look at you and smile and say, "No." That's a great feeling. No, no. So then you have to go all the way back, sit down. I thought, I've got to be able to do something. Well, I found I could make people laugh. My mom would say, "Eat your vegetables. There are children starving in Europe." I'd say, "Name 2. Don't cheek your mom." What do you do for a living? "I raise vegetables." "Oh, I lower them." Don't talk to you. I saw things just a little bit differently. And we had a local dance of some kind, and I got about 5 or 6 jokes together and got up and told them, and everybody laughed. So, do a fade, and my brother and I now are working as waiters in the Olive White. Tails, white tie. My brother, good waiter. And we're walking along the street in Shanklin, and there's a sign that said, at the end of a pier, "Wanted, ingenues and juvenile leads." And under the word ingenue were probably 30 girls' names. They had taken the pencil and written their name on it. And on the boys, juvenile lead, there were maybe 3 boys' names. I said to my brother, "What's an Angie?" "I don't know." I said, "Well, look at these girls. We should go in and we could meet them." Great idea. So I signed my name, and it said, at the bottom it said, sometime, it was about 2 hours. We went back in 2 hours, and sure enough, there's 30 girls sitting in this theater Or we go and say, "Hi, how are you? No, do you mind, please? We're rehearsing." They weren't interested in boys. They were interested in an audition piece, you know. And people suddenly got up and said, "All right, we'll begin now. Keith Harrington and Melissa Dabney." And they come on. They're just young 18-year-olds. Act 1, Scene 2, the suicide scene from Terence Rattigan's The Deep Blue Sea. So that's like they were speaking in Greek to me. I have no idea what they were. They do a little scene. You know, yes, I do it. Suddenly, from the front of the theater, producers say, "Thank you very much." And they go off. Then another couple would come on. All of them have pieces to do. My brother, now we were getting about £5 a week, $15 a week as waiter. My brother said, "I'll bet you £50, that's $200. You won't go up when they call you." I said, "What would I do when I'm up there? I can't go up." And he said, "I know you wouldn't go." The more I thought of this money, $200. I said, "All right, I'll go," and I'll give you £50. So we wait, and about, must have been 2 or 3 hours. Calling him, because I wasn't anybody there. So I get up, and I'm standing on the side. And the stage manager said, "You'll walk to the center, announce your piece. Are you with anybody?" I said, No. He said, "Just announce your piece, and they'll tell you when to stop." Okay. Now, I used to do an impression of our school teacher, our English teacher, who taught like this all the time. "Now, today we're going to do The Merchant of Venice." Then he would read a scene, and he'd say, "So here, say Shylock says, 'What more shall I seem to hurtle through the air and yet?'" And he said, "Now you notice the nuances." Yeah, why does he speak perfect English when he's reading Shakespeare, but he talks like a gutter snipe, you know, with this thick accent? So I'd do impressions of him. Oh, everyone would laugh. I got caught once, and, you know, you're furious. So they said to me, "Okay, go." So I went forward, and I said, Scene 2, Act 3, Henry IV. I have no idea. I know nothing about Shakespeare. And he said, "The fourth?" I said, "Yes." And begin. "Hark! What cannons rumble, and seize the day that friendship should come upon the face of man." And a voice in my head said, "These people don't know. They're running this show, but they don't know. I'm making this stuff up." And they're going, "Wonderfully." I mean, truly, it was like someone had opened a door and you could go into Candyland with Willy Wonka. Truly, I thought, I loved doing this.
And you were loving it at the moment.
I was loving it, and I'm getting louder and moving more. "Shout forth the kings, and yet we diminish to a hush." Suddenly I hear, "Excuse me." I said, "Yes." He said, "May I ask, what on earth are you doing?" And, you know, better still, "Why are you doing this?" I said, I think I would like to be an actor." There was a little pause, and he said, "I think I may be able to help you. Leave the stage." And I left. And the next day, I was in the repertory company. And 1 week later, we opened with Noel Cowart's Murder Party, about when you all take a card and whoever gets the ace of spades, you know, will do the murder. I played three parts. I played a cad, Pierre Bourbon, who we suspect did it, Inspector Wilkins of the yard, and the commandeer. This was magic to me. The newspaper came out the day afterward and said, amazing, thrilling, why we need people like Richard Attenborough and people to fill out. We need someone with the joy and the zest as Colin M. Oh, I'm probably going to open the West End right away, you know. So the next day we're at the beach learning the lines for the next week's play. And somebody in the show said to me, you see that over there? And I looked, there's a girl, maybe 14. And she's got a little baby with her digging a hole in the sand. I said, yeah. He said, that's Otis. I said, pardon? Otis, gentleman who reviewed the show. I said, yeah. He said, she's Otis. What are you doing? They love me. What are you doing? Wasn't that girl? Her dad owns a newspaper. She just thought you were great, but she doesn't know anything about acting. You know, I thought, well, if I don't say anything, and she doesn't say anything, I could be onto something good. That's how I became an actor.
How did you become Richard Dawson? Where'd that come from?
Oh. Well, I drank this serum. No, I did that for the theater for about a year and a half, and I was poor at the end of it. You know, when I started, I had 2 shirts and a suit. When I finished, I had 1 shirt left, because you don't get money in repertory. And I saw someone on an interview, or maybe in the paper, said, actors come and go. Actors need a vehicle. But comedians, once they're accepted, can go on forever. I thought, oh, well, how do you spell that? I'll make a note. I'll become one of these comedians. So I looked in a local paper, stage paper, to see who the big agency was. And it's like, here would be William Morris. In England, it was Foster's Agency. So I wrote to Foster's Agency and said, I'm a well-known Canadian comedian, and I'm on vacation, didn't use the word holiday, on vacation in the British Isles, and I'd love to pick up a couple of weeks' work. And within a month, they sent me a contract. Now, I'm not kidding you. They sent me a 6-week contract with a singer named Tony Brett. I was the comedian on it. Well, of course, that was great, except I didn't have an act. And, you know, I didn't have a name. But I had signed this thing that I wrote, Van Doren, Vandoran. Why? That was the name of the manufacturer of a reed for a saxophone that I'd seen in this movie. Oh, I like Van Johnson was a movie star. Van Heflin, Van Doren, that's the name I used. When I got this job, I went with Foster Agency. And I mean, I was a disaster, but that'll take you 3 hours if I tell you how bad I was. And when I came back, a man named Cyril Berlin in the Foster's Agency said, I don't think Van Doren's a good name for you. That sounds like a fighter or a sportsman. Try to think of something else. Right across Piccadilly Circus was an agent for writing, what they call a literary agent. Over there was a man named Richard Stone, very nice. Cyril Berlin, go and see him. He'll help you with names. I went in, this lovely English man, about 45. He said, we're supposed to get a name for you, are we? I said, yeah. So he said, any particular first name you like? I said, I like yours, Richard. He said, all right. Now, what about the last name? I thought, I don't know. And right through the window behind him was a big bottle that said, Dawson. Is it Whiskey Stark or, you know? And he said, how about that, Richard Dawson? I mean, it was within 5 minutes. I said, I like that. He said, yeah, well, you know, you will be called Dickie. He said, that's a very English thing. They take a lovely name like Richard, and they'll call it Dickie. It's rather effeminate, but if you can, oh, I said, I can deal with that. I went back to Cyril and I said, I know Van Doren. He said, oh, I like it. And sure enough, the first thing he booked me, he booked Dickie Dawson, not Richard Dawson, which I wanted. And I had my billing with the Good Humor Man. And he said to me, why'd you call it? Oh, because you do jokes? I said, no, I sell ice cream on the side. And he said, I don't want you to do that sort of thing over here. He said, that's not funny to us. I said, well, no, in America, Good Humor, that's a Good Humor Man and an ice cream. He said, yeah, if we have to have all those points of reference, don't do those sort of jokes. I said, okay. And that was how I became Richard Dawson. When I came over here, I changed it legally to Greta Garbo. Is that too silly?
What kind of jokes did Richard Dawson do? What would
yeah, well, I tell you what, I loved Jack Benny. I watched him in movies, and I loved Jack Benny because he never strung you out. See, I do have to tell you, the very first time that I did this, I'll make it quick. The opening day, I'd never been on the stage as a comedian. I went to Plymouth. You have to have music. So I had some printed music of Georgia. I used to do a bit of an impression of Frankie Lane. Georgia. And you have to do a rehearsal. So I came in, and in theater, a dress rehearsal, you're all made up in your dress, but not in Variety, vaudeville, you know. But I didn't know that, so I'm made up, got my clothes on and my music, and I go backstage, and the stage manager said, who are you? I said, Dick Dawson. He said, oh, well, you going somewhere before the show? I said, no, I just wanted the lighting, you know, to see me. And he said, oh. And he looked at me, I never forget. It's a hip line, but at the time it wasn't. He said, let me see, makeup, clean shirt, but no leotards. I said, I didn't know what leotards were. I said, no. He said, okay, I'll do your lighting plot. So that means how you want your light. So he said, want to give me an idea of your plot? I said, well, I come out and tell a few jokes about my brother, and then, no, he said, full up? And I said, that means all the lights on. I said, well, I had breakfast this morning. He looked at me and he said, okay, now about the microphone, stand or riser? I mean, he could have said to me, achlin bon wachlin, meant stand or riser. I said, stand. And he said, stand? I said, or riser? He said, I'll put you down for riser. I had no idea what it was. A pencil-thin microphone had been invented, and instead of the big microphones that they put out, they could lower this, and it would go underground. And when it was ready, a little flap would come up, and up come the microphone, and you weren't aware that you were being, you know, you're talking into a microphone. Very modern, that one. And so he said to me, stand or rise. You know, I go out to do the show. Very nice audience and everything. I said, good evening. I've been asked to say a few words on current affairs. I'm afraid I can't. I've never had an affair with a current. It's deadly silent. I said, I saw the stage manager. He's very, very nice. Ken Thompson. I was in the marketplace. He said, I'm going to the theater. Can I give you a lift? I said, sure. So I jumped on his back. Nothing. I said, mate, if you could just they were just looking at me in like total disbelief, but no one was heckling me. And then I said, my brother and his wife, I said, you're going to love this. She loves music. And suddenly, as I said that, I heard, like thunder. So he said, will you marry me? She said, please play some music. And she said, oh, music makes me feel so romantic. I said, no matter what it was, all you had to do was put some beautiful music on, and she was in the mood for love, you know. And I said, that was 17 years ago. I saw him today. They have 17 kids. She's tired but happy, and he's going around saying, stop the music! And this place erupted like I told the greatest joke in the world. But I'll stand out of frame. I just want to just show, I'm like this, and the microphone has come inside my trouser leg. And I felt it, so I thought, if I raise this casually, I can get this off of my leg. You know? Well, the more I raised, the more the guy was pulling. So it just kept, and in the end, I'm like this, casually talking, and he whipped it down, and I fell right into the footlight, not the headlights. This is probably boring, but it made me laugh because I remember it so well. I burnt my hand on the light. I tore my only pair of trousers, and I got up, and the band's going, I said, Georgia! I couldn't get in the key. Georgia! And they are screaming because of this microphone has done this. I go off. I'm bleeding here. I'm expected to be thrown in jail or something. And the stage manager said, tell me the truth. You've never been on the bloody stage in your life. I said, no, I'm sorry. And he said, go upstairs. And he made me go upstairs to a very old performer who was on the bill. Billy something on behalf of the working class. He said, what happened to you? I saw you. What happened? I said, well, they didn't like me. They didn't like me. Is that why you spoke quicker? I said, yeah. He said, if they can't laugh at what you're talking now, how are they going to understand if you're just talking twice that speed? Just give them time to laugh and look at them, and they will laugh. If there's anything vaguely funny, they'll laugh. I said, yeah, I'll give you 4 jokes for the next show, and that'll be your act. So I did 12 minutes originally. The second show I went out, did 4 2-minute jokes. They all got laughs. All of them, And I went off. Stage manager said to me, that's much better. We'll see you tomorrow. And as they say, a star was born.
Let's hold 1 second. So did you ever see that veteran performer? Did he get to see?
Oh, the old guy who helped me? Yes, I did. About almost 2 years later, I had remarkably become quite well known and was earning quite a lot of money. And I played the Palladium. And I found him through, was it like SAG, after, it's a union.
British Equity.
Yeah, and I found him, and I got a ticket for him and his wife in the box. And I really killed him that night. And I told them how important he was, And I saw him afterwards, and he said, don't lose your day job. And he was so very proud of me, But it was magic that I could do it, because I said, did you tell your wife how bad I was? He said, well, I told her you died on the way to the hospital.
Let me ask you, Richard, when was the first time you saw television? What was the first thing you saw?
Yeah, first thing, I was on it in England. They had a variety show on a Saturday where they put all kinds of people on, jugglers, like Ed Sullivan without Ed Sullivan. And they said to me, do you have 2 or 3 minutes, relevant to television, of course? I said, well, you mean the only people that can come on television are the ones who are going to talk about television? That seems kind of crazy. Why wouldn't you want the same thing people love in theater? Yes, I know, but I said, okay, I'll write a visual thing. So I had an idea of what television would look like to various people. If you were a peeping Tom, it would look, and there'd be a keyhole. If you're in jail, it'd be bars, If you were a baby, all the adults looking in. So I did a whole series of stuff which went over wonderfully, delicately. Normally you would say it was a flop, but it wasn't. In television in England at that time, they'd say, very nice concept. Yeah, except I do comedy and I didn't get one laugh. You don't need laughs. No, the concept's superb. And they paid you £5 and you were gone. That was the first time I thought, this is not for me. When I came here, this is where the magic Wizard of Oz Road comes,
What brought you here?
My wife, who's an English actress named Diana Dawes.
Now, for younger viewers, she was the Marilyn Monroe of England, right?
The European, the English Marilyn Monroe. But in all fairness, over here, Marilyn Monroe was the Diana Dawes of America. And she was blonde and very pretty. And she had a contract with RKO. So she had to come over here. And she'd done a film with George Gobel. And she had done one called The Unholy Wife with Rod Steiger. So they were sort of current name. So off we go, and we come to New York, did the Steve Allen show, big Sunday night show. And I said, I think this would be a great place to raise kids. This is when we were in California. And she said, yeah. So you do like a little phase. Liberace became a friend of ours, and we let him stay in our farm in England, and he gave us his house in Palm Springs for our honeymoon, because we got married. When we came here to L.A., and we were renting a house down on Chevy Chase, telephone rings, and a voice said, hello, I'm Elise Mayberry, who is a lovely lady. I'm producing a show called The Mike Stokey Show on KCOP, Channel 13. I would like to invite Diana Dawes to be a co-host with Mike Stokey. That would be like, hoping that Meryl Streep would come on and do tic-tac-toe with you. You know what I'm saying? So I said, oh, well, I'll discuss that with her. Now I had to find out. Oh, pantomime quiz, that's what Mike Stokey was famous for. And KCOP was just down the road. And they wanted her to do something obviously wouldn't do. I said to Diana, I think I should do it. And she said, well, would they let you do it? I said, well, let me try. So I went to see Elise, and she said, will she do it? I said, she can't. She's under contract to RKO, and they won't let her do it. And I said, I know, it's a lot of fun, because I've done 3 or 4 series in England. She said, what, a talk show? I said, oh, yeah. She said, is it unnerving? Always different. But no, you just talk to them just how I'm talking to you now, or I wouldn't know what you were talking about. And she said, oh, just a moment. She went, came back and said, Mike would like to offer you 13 weeks as his co-host. I said, okay. Now, this is where I really wasn't smart, but I didn't know. And she said, and scale is $111 or something, and we'll pay you $150. I thought, oh, eureka! I mean, truly, I thought I'll probably be buying a big building soon. And so then I went on television daily. It was 5 nights a week. And I loved it, and nobody ever tumbled me. Nobody ever came and said, he's never done anything. Mike liked ladies. As guests, he liked ladies with voluptuous figures. He loved them. Never would talk, he'd just look at them. So I would talk. Milton Berle called in. He was famous for directing me. He'd say, go to a 2-shot. I'd say, Milton Berle said, go to a 2-shot, and the director would go. Tony Curtis's mother was there. She was a dear love. My son, Bernie Schwartz, is at Universal. I said, oh, I had no idea what Bernie Schwartz was. And someone said, that's Tony Curtis. So I had got an introduction into television. I knew as a medium, it's the perfect medium for me, because if it's live, you can see what an abysmal interview I had. No, if it's live, I like to talk. And if it's not live, you've got the pressure of, you want it, when you're playing it back, to be worth the fact that you taped it. I'm saying, like Feud, the reason Feud. I love dealing with 5 people, and on the other side, 5 people. They'll all say something, and I can file it and bring it up any time, and they're with me. Like having 10 straight people with me. And so that was it. Bob Barker gave me a show, only 13 weeks, and I can't think of the name of it. But it was on Channel 2. Karen, I'd like you to track that down. No, because you may be able to tell me the name of it. I know he gave me a lunch pail with the name of the show as a gift. So I assumed they were hoping the show would do well in merchandising, but of course it didn't. I went from there. I got into quiz show. I did Can You Top This?
How'd you move into acting from this live television and comedy?
Well, there was an agent who was a friend of Leonard, my manager, and myself, and he had, I don't want to put this, he was wonderful, but he was working for William Morris, and if he saw something that might be good for me, very casually he would say, William Wyler's looking at people for The Collector. I said, oh, really? Yeah. So then my manager, we wangle an interview. I never got any of the job, but William Wyler, I remember, he said, come in again and tell me about yourself. And when I'd finished with what I said, I held my nose and jumped off the stage like I was going in the pool. And he laughed. And then I didn't get it, but some people who were near said, Willie doesn't laugh too much. You probably haven't got it, but he likes you. So one day, maybe in the future, he'll call upon you. Willie, if you're watching, I'm still waiting. Bordering on 90, I'm 78.
And you had the same manager all these years?
Yeah.
How'd you meet him?
I was at a dinner party for Kathy Nolan for The Real McCoys of Richard Cannon. And there was a gentleman there who was an agent called Dick Heckenkamp. I didn't know him, but I could make him laugh. He's got a great laugh, and he was a very nice man, but I could say anything. He'd say, you like this tie? And I'd say, did the deceased leave anything else? And I mean, he would collapse, truly. So he was just forming a business with a man named Leonard Granger, and they were just about to sign. He said, I want you to see my manager. I went to a place on Sunset Strip for lunch. Now, my manager was born with one ear. It's just a fact of life. It doesn't affect him as an agent, but a manager, but I trying to impress him, and he said to me, Dick Heckenkamp said, you're one of the funniest human beings alive. And, I said, did you say anything good? Nothing. No matter what I said, I just laughed. And he said, well, I don't know if you've got a chance in this business. I don't even know if I want to handle you. He wasn't being nasty. He's very blunt, But I had been here working for like 40 minutes at this lunch. So I stood up and I said, you know your trouble? Everything I tell you goes in one ear. And I turn around and I'm on the way out and I hear, and I turn and Leonard is on the floor, hysterical, laughing. I thought, I must have done something wrong. When he got up, he said, I'm 40-something. No one has ever mentioned the fact that I don't have an ear for years. And that was the funniest thing. I said, are you going to handle me? He said, yeah. And that's how I got him, and that was 62. And it's now, what is it now?
28 years later, 38 years later.
Oh, I got to go. I've got lunch here.
So how'd you get on the Dick Van Dyke Show, which is the first time we really saw you?
When I first came here, I did a week's work at Ye Little Club, Marshall Edson in Beverly Hills. Lovely audience. And Carl Reiner came. And I didn't know Carl Reiner. And afterwards, he said, I've got an idea for a show, and I'll get in touch with you. So then he came and said, he asked for a meeting about a couple of weeks. He said, this is a guy, he's like Jose Ferrer. He loves everybody, and everybody thinks they're his best friend. But really, he isn't. But, when people say Jose, they say, oh, what a dear. And he does gestures. And he said, so I want you to be like this in Rob and Laura's house. I said, okay. He said, I said, I do some bird calls. He said, that's great. That'll help you get the job because no other actor auditioning will know what to do. That was Carl. And so Sheldon Leonard, who was one of my first impressions, who was the dearest, sweetest man, but he always played Gunsels. He always played hoods. He's the voice on the radio, and it said, your money or your life? Benny says, I'm thinking it over. That's Sheldon Leonard, very elegant man. And I have to go and see him for this role. And I'm really very nervous, but anyway, I go, and he says, come in. I said, this is not going to help my reading, but you were one of the first voices I ever did. And in England, if I can get just a little bit of your tone, they would accept it. It's not a good impression. But somebody's going to get nailed. You know whom? Hume. That's whom. And they looked at me and he said, so how are you going to play this part? I thought I'd come in and say, hello, lovies, hello, darling. Nigel Patrick in England often played in Noel Coward. Call everybody darling, Hello, darling. Love to see you, Paul. Karen, darling, this is Paul. What a sweetheart he is. And then, you go to make some contact with me, but he's on to the next group. And you two are left saying, what a delightful person. That he would link people, So I said, I think you should say hello, darling. And he said, I think you got the job. Do you do bird calls? I said, yes, I do. He said, okay, make it work. So when I came to do the show, he did, it was a 3-camera, and he did the warm-up and introduced us, Dick and Laura. And he said, a young man that I'm going to bring out now, I'm not even going to say a name. He comes from England, which means, of course, we got to treat him nicely, because if we're in England, we'd like to be treated nice. I thought, what a weird, they're going to hate me or something. He said, anybody that I ever put on the show, I was never ashamed of that fact. We'll see you later. Oh, he said, we'll see if you agree with me. So it's a marvelous show, if you ever see that show. Hello, darling, Rosie. Oh, yes, I'm a lighthouse keeper. Excellent. I've got a lighthouse. It needs cleaning rather badly. I did the whole thing. They're a great audience. I had no pickups, which was very unusual. Usually those shows, you did a pickup. It was about an hour's work after the audience left. When we finished, and he introduced everybody, and then he said, so now, the guy that we brought from England and I am anxious to hear if we made a good choice. They not only clapped, they stood. If you're in another country and you got someone and they stand, it's a television part, but I swear to you, it was like I got an Oscar, and he said, Racy, come on. When I did a bow, and he said, you got to tell me how to do those boys later. And that was it. But then millions of people knew me because it was a very popular show. And I didn't work for another 11 years. That's showbiz.
But the audition was a one-on-one with Sheldon Leonard?
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, that's because of Carl. Later I got into another Carl Reiner, Dick Van Dyke show called The Dick Van Dyke Show. They were filming in Phoenix.
The new Dick Van Dyke Show.
It was the new. Cheetah Rivera was my wife. That was fun, too. You're sort of blessed with those times. Dick Van Dyke would take a script when we were reading it, and there would be funny things there. And then look at it 2 days later when they're blocking it. Like he's at the dentist's office, and he's reading. Someone goes by him, close the door, and suddenly you hear the most gut-wrenching howl of pain. And he unfolds his legs, hits the table, magazines go everywhere, and he's on the floor. But you've done that scene maybe 14 times in the last 2 days, and he will add something. That's like, if you watch that show, often the performers in scenes, Jerry Parrish, you'll see him genuinely laughing. As, he was so, well, he still is, so creative,
Tell us about the rehearsal. When you first walked into the rehearsal, there's the cast of the Dick Van Dyke Show. What was that like for a new performer, basically?
Yeah, oh, no, everybody was... I had a scene where I had to dance with Laura and be a wonderful dancer like my brother. But I can't dance a step. And I said to Carl, and I said to Laura, I can't dance. And Carl said, we'll shoot. We'll shoot from the waist up. And she said, Lord, I can barely dance, but we'll do it together. And I mean, she put her feet somehow just inside of mine. She would just touch, and my feet would go out, and we were just spinning around for a little bit. And if you look at the film, it looks as though I'm cutting quite well on the light fantastic. But that was Laura. They were, I got to stop worrying. They are magic people. I adored Mary Tyler Moore and Dick Van Dyke. Just, it's just an honor, as I say, that you've done something with them. Now, bowling for dollars, that's a different story.
Let's move on to Hogan's Heroes.
Hogan?
Hogan's Heroes.
Oh, I wish I'd done that.
How did that part come to you?
Leonard, my manager said they're doing a thing like Stalag 17. They're holding auditions. Go and see Eddie Feldman. He was a producer, an amazing man. And he wants to see you at CBS. So I went there and I read it. Now, I love Bilko. That's all I adored. No one can deliver like Phil Silvers. And just the dialogue would, he'd look up and there'd be the colonel's wife, and you'd say, I didn't know Look magazine were using the camp for location. Oh, Sergeant Bilko. I mean, he could make just fade little lines, funny lines. So if I was going to do what I thought Hogan's Heroes was going to be, I would do him as near as I could to Phil Silver, which is fine, except it's not what anybody else wanted. Now, I'm sure they have my audition tape somewhere, and they should show it to every actor and actress ever auditioning. I mean, one in fact may. We say, choose any of the things he did and avoid. There'll be a good chance you'll get this role. I'm not putting me down to be cute. You saw Bob Crane.
But you were auditioning for the role of Hogan at this point, right?
I went to do for Newkirk, and somebody went over to Eddie Feldman and said, and Eddie came and said, do you think you could do Hogan? And I said, well, like Phil Silvers? He said, well, yeah, but if you could, give it, I said, well, I'll try. I knew none of the dialogue, But I did a test, and I mean, I've done lots of things where you hope you may have gotten a part, but deep down inside, you really don't. This I knew before I got back to the coffee machine. I thought someone was going to say, give me your SAG card now. AFTRA, now. Kind of leave the country within 24 hours. I mean, that's how bad I knew it was. But they were all very sweet. Went very well. Yeah, thank you very much. I just knew. So I never even thought about having that role. And Eddie called about a week later, and he said, how would you play Newkirk? He's a pickpocket, bit of a thief. And I said, oh, I don't want to do a Cockney or a Scot. Those are always the accents. And I said, I know, I'll do a Liverpool accent. It's all like that, How are you? Up your lazy river, you dumb. They have a great way with word. I did the pilot. I did, I think, 3 days, and they rushed it to New York. We hadn't finished it. They rushed it to New York, and Philip Morris bought it, and General Food. They bought it all right out. And then Mike Dan, big wig at CBS, very nice, came and said to me, just a minute. I said, Mike, what do you